Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to the Melissa M.A.D.E Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. All right. Well, welcome everybody back to the Melissa M.A.D.E Show. And today I have a guest that I want to, how I met her was kind of funny because on Instagram, I had a follower that reached out to me and she's like, have you read the book Body Love? And I was like, no, I've not heard of it. And she goes, she is very similar to you. She goes, she kind of looks like you. And she says, when I read the book, she says, everything that you kind of preach from, insulin to, carbohydrates to hormones. She says, she does too. She goes, I have a little ebook, Kelly. Your ebook is very similar to Body Love, except Body Love is this great, big, huge, great book with wonderful recipes in it. So I got the book. And for those of you watching YouTube, there it is. And I read it cover to cover. And this is a very, the word humble doesn't say it, but I guess narcissistic of me, because I looked at your copyright and I'm like, did she write this before the M.A.D.E diet, or did I write my book first? Because I was like, where did this come from? But they're very, very similar. And it just felt really good to have somebody like her. She's a holistic nutritionist, and she works with celebrities like Jessica Alba and Chelsea Handler. I can't imagine what those people are to work with, but how exciting that would be. She's a mom of two boys. She's based in Los Angeles, California, and Be Well grew out of Kelly's passion for health and science of nutrition and overall wellness, guided by a practice and always optimistic approach. That's for sure. Kelly helps clients improve their health, achieve their goals, and develop sustainable habits to live a healthy and balanced life. So it's such an honor to have her on here today, because I've had this book so much so that even one of my cats have decided that it was a chew toy for them. Has been something that I have referenced a lot because it's just chock full of great information. So not only the book, but you also have the Body Love Journal. So I welcome you to the podcast, Kelly, and I would love to ask you, can you tell me how to pronounce your name? I don't want to say it wrong.
My last name is LeVeque.
LeVeque. Okay, yeah. That's right. I was making it really, really fancy. Share with us the book, where the book came from, and then also the journal and how it kind of helps coincide with the book.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Melissa. I'm really excited to be here. And I love that you're talking about blood sugar and insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome and how people can balance their blood sugar, because it really changes lives. And we need a lot of us out on the streets doing it and educating and getting our community inspired and making them feel empowered by the science. So thank you for what you do too. So I spent 8 years in cancer and genetics. I worked on the business side of, I guess you can call it illness, not healthcare.
Right.
It's sick care. And unfortunately, it was just really hard for me to be a part of that. And ultimately went back to school for clinical nutrition, postgraduate work at UCLA and Berkeley, and started a side hustle. Be Well by Kelly was a side hustle. It was a passion project. I loved cooking healthy. I loved getting inspired by meals. I love taking my family favorites and elevating them. And that really, it started, like I said, as a passion project. And so I started helping friends and family. And after I went back to school, I ultimately put up my website, started my business, and a year later flew to New York and pitched my book, Body Love. And what it was based on is something called the Fab Four. So what I find is sometimes the science is really overwhelming for people. the science of blood sugar. They may have heard, oh, if you put peanut butter on an apple, that balances your blood sugar. Or I heard that if you start your day with protein or fiber, that balances your blood sugar. But there's no real science and understanding there, whereas someone might say, well, oatmeal is full of fiber, so I'll start my day with that, and that'll balance my blood sugar. So what I tried to do is create a simple, light structure lifestyle that allowed my clients to learn what to put on their plate to support blood sugar balance. So the Fab Four is the 4 pillars include protein, fat, fiber, and leafy greens or vegetables deep in color. Now, when it comes to blood sugar balance, protein, fat, and fiber really are the key players there. And the leafy greens piece, or the vegetables deep in color, that's adding phytochemicals, antioxidants, and remembering that we can't just be protein bar people, right? It's real foods, whole foods, and that's a huge piece. So we know from science that we need essential amino acids from protein, we need essential fatty acids from fat, and the fiber and greens piece, which really means like whole foods, fruits and vegetables, like low glycemic fruits, veggies like cauliflower, asparagus, cucumber, all of that good stuff, not only feeds our microbiome, it fuels us and it sustains our meals. So what I'm looking to do is help people elongate their blood sugar curve, not have them eat something, spike up for 90 minutes, crash down for 90 minutes, and then go, what's next? I want people to fuel in a way that sustains them over a 4 to 6 hour window, that really allows for complete digestion, that fuels their microbiome, that gives them the essential nutrients they need from food. And I want people to get out of their own way when it comes to dieting. Like diet culture, I grew up in it. I was born in the 80s. From South Beach to Atkins to protein power. Then it was like soup cleanses, like Cabbage soup diet and crazy things like that. And so it became this thing where I saw a lot of my friends and a lot of women that I looked up to. It was like they were on plan or off plan, and there was nothing flexible, nothing vague. Everything was like, download this PDF and follow this, and that's how you learn how to eat. And I just found, for me, like I stopped yo-yo dieting or thinking about and following those diets when I understood the science. And so the whole point of Body Love is to teach the science of how pairing food groups and eating whole foods can support blood sugar balance. And so the Body Love and Body Love Every Day are my 2 books that explain the science of blood sugar. And then the journal itself is a way to support people to manifest and prepare in a way that allows them to eat in a super balanced way and feel the benefits, and start to like write it down. Like, how am I feeling when I fuel up with protein, fat, and fiber? Like when am I hungry? If I start my day with protein, and I created the Fab Four smoothie, which you'll find in the books. The Fab Four smoothie is taking the Fab Four and putting it in your blender, because back in 2012, when I started my business, the juice shops and the smoothie shops in LA were all really like all fruit smoothies. They were loaded with sugar, totally derailed blood sugar balance. And so for me, it was, hey, this is a really super easy way to incorporate plant-based foods, lots of produce, and to have a quick breakfast that isn't a bar, and that it actually can satisfy you if you put the right things in your smoothie. But most of what I was seeing on the market and available for purchase were really derailing people's goals. And I thought, if someone doesn't understand the science of this, they could think that they're doing really right for their body, but increasing cravings or increasing insulin and blood sugar and derailing like any, body composition goals they may have.
Yeah, totally. And so for your morning routine and how to upgrade the caffeine or to be well with caffeine, you have your smoothie in the morning. And if you do, can you share with us maybe your personal favorite recipe of the smoothies that you've made, kind of your go-to that you choose?
Yeah. So my morning routine, it looks a lot different now that I have children, and I have young children. But when it comes to my nutrition, it is dialed, because it has been for, like I said, about a decade of preaching this, and living it for longer than that. So, for me, my Fab Four smoothie, which I actually just had before we taped, it's 9:45 right now. And I just had it like, I made my smoothie and then went to fill up my water in the garage, and my babysitter was there with my 1-year-old, and we started a little late because my 1-year-old needed me. But basically today's smoothie was a little unsweetened macadamia nut milk, I put in my chocolate protein powder. So I have a grass-fed beef isolate protein powder that I came out with last year. I'm coming out with a vegan chocho bean protein in April. So I'll have both animal-based and plant-based complete proteins, no hexane extraction. That's important to me. So I had chocolate in that. And then I had a tablespoon of almond butter, a tablespoon of chia, and some spinach and some frozen raspberries. And I blended that up. So that was today. It was like a chocolate raspberry. But one of my favorites would be my cookies and cream recipe or my spa smoothie. Both of those are on my website. Cookies and cream is blueberries and chocolate and almond butter. And then my spa smoothie is cucumber and mint and lemon and avocado. And it's really fresh. It kind of feels like you just went to a spa. And we use a vanilla protein powder for that one. So I break my fast with breakfast somewhere between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. I don't go for any later than that. I find that if I push to noon or 1 or 2 and push back my feeding window, I make up for it on the back end. And I've seen that in practice with clients as well, where if the intermittent fasting goes too late, they overcompensate later in the day and blood sugar can be dysregulated. So we're actually more sensitive when we fast to food. So breaking your fast is super important. It's important to break your fast with a balanced meal. And so the Fat Force smoothie really supports me to do that. The only other than when I'm pregnant, sometimes when I'm pregnant, I crave like warm, like egg scramble or veggies and eggs and things like of that nature. But mostly the Fat Force smoothie has supported me through, both pregnancies, breastfeeding. It makes sure that my kids have veggies. And so they may not have like a full smoothie every morning, but I double that, whatever recipe I'm making, and pour them both a mini cup. And I know, great, they're getting some healthy protein and fat and fiber to support their blood sugar, especially Sebastian's 3 and he heads off to preschool. So knowing in my heart that he's not going into processed food snack hungry is really important to me.
I love the name Sebastian.
Thank you.
That's a great name. So I just got done interviewing Cynthia Thurlow just a couple of days ago. And, we of course talked a lot about fasting. And I love to hear that it's something that you practice as well. Can you share with us are you pretty strict within your hours? Do you vary it? How long have you been doing it? What got you into intermittent fasting?
Yeah. So I love a time restricted eating. The research really shows that eating even in a 10-hour window is beneficial to triglycerides, cholesterol ratio, inflammatory markers. So for me, I am not the kind of person that if you say intermittent fasting is great for you, then that means M.A.D.E is the best, or one meal a day, right? I like to take a pretty balanced approach with less rigid rules. If you can't tell from from the Fab Four being like light structure lifestyle, I like light structure fasting. And I find that it works the best for me and for most of my clients. But I do like fasting on the back end of the day more than the front end of the day. Meaning if you can have dinner at 5 or 6 at night and not eat after that, it's definitely harder than maybe pushing back breakfast. But I see faster body composition changes when someone has completed their last meal of the day, completely digested that, balanced their blood sugar, and then they go into sleep, because we get more fat burning, we get better lymphatic cleansing of the brain, we get better weight loss if that's a goal, inflammation of joints like hands, ankles, wrists. I mean, it's pretty amazing how fast I can see benefits in that when people aren't eating late and going to sleep with a full stomach. So for me, it's a lot easier because I do have young kids. So we have dinner at 5 or 5:30, and then I'm done for the day. So rarely am I eating after that last meal of the day. I would say if I had a really hard workout or maybe under 8 during the day, I may throw on a back end like hot chocolate with my chocolate protein powder and a little bit of like hot almond milk or hot water. But that kind of hits the buckets of like, maybe I need something sweet, but also I'm still a little bit hungry. And really intermittent fasting is a lot easier when people aren't underfed. So really important that in that fasting window, whether it's, a tight 6 hours or a bigger 10-hour feeding window, that we're eating what our body needs and we're supporting blood sugar balance along the way. So a day in the life of me when I looks a little bit like I wake up, I have water. A lot of times I'm putting electrolytes in my water, like Element. That's a sugar-free electrolyte mix from Rob Wolf. It's great for people that lean a little bit more low carb, paleo, keto, carnivore. Even if someone is vegan or vegetarian and they're checking their blood sugar and they know that they run lower, makes you feel amazing. So I love that. I take my coffee with a splash of unsweetened cashew milk or coconut milk. I love this new creamer called Keto Brains. It has L-theanine and lion's mane in it.
Oh, wow.
So I'm into that. It's like a powdered coconut milk. So looking for like a very minimal little light creamer, or I take it black and then I'll have my smoothie. And so depending on the day, if it's my morning, which Chris and I switch off, my husband and I switch off, then I get a workout. And if it's his morning, which I'm Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so lucky me, today's a Monday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I get my morning, and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, he gets the first morning session. If you can kind of like imagine that, that's like, we are in the throes of toddlerhood. And so we went from having an amazing morning routine, each of us getting to do our thing and meditate and work out, to,
Right.
oh my goodness, now we have children and no one gets a morning routine. And what we realized is like, we'd rather divide and conquer than feel like we're missing out. And so, so Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays are really more like that workout or movement might need to happen after bedtime. And that's harder for me to do when I'm in a fasted state, but I'd rather do it and feel better. So those days that look a little bit more like maybe like a light ride on the Peloton or a yoga at my house, versus getting to hit a class or a gym or something like that.
Love that. I think that's so, for those of you listening, such a great parent hack. I mean, you rarely hear the trade-offs, and I think that's fantastic. So thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was on Instagram yesterday, scrolling the reels, and I found this gentleman, hilarious. His reels are hilarious. But one of the things, it was one of those trending ones that say, you see that toxic person, turn around, see that toxic. Anyway, and one of them was, if anybody tells you not to eat past 7 p.m. And I went, oh, and I wanted to message him so bad because I'm like, it's not a diet thing, because I know you're very anti-diet culture. And so working with your clients and, trying to help someone understand how beneficial it is for your sleep to not eat right before you go to bed, but then try not to fall into that, that diet trap that we hear, that some people think that if someone's telling you not to eat at a certain time, it's diet culture. How do you handle that?
You really need to reframe it, right? Because what the reality is there's a lot of intermittent fasting research coming out, and being published on Google Scholar and PubMed research from really phenomenal researchers that are showing this is beneficial for metabolic health. This is beneficial for brain health. And so this is very different from someone coming up with a diet like the cabbage soup cleanse, right? I mean, cabbage soup is wonderful for you.
Sure.
Drinking cabbage soup for 12 days alone, okay, interesting, and probably really easy for someone to do. So, okay, it's a tool, but is it something I maybe recommend today in 2022? No. Could someone have a bowl of cabbage soup? Phenomenal. It's a cruciferous vegetable. Let's talk about NRF2 activation. Let's talk about veggies. Let's talk about fiber. Great, right? So we need to look at each one of these things coming out of research as a tool. And then we need to look at what the benefits of this tool would be and how it applies to our life and what triggers it creates in our own body. So I think when you look at intermittent fasting, if I have a client who has a tendency to be all or nothing, or have an eating disorder past, or yo-yo dieting past, I will bring up tools like intermittent fasting. We'll talk about what the benefits are, but then I will look at what their past is and see if this tool fits into their lifestyle. A good example would be someone who goes to an office and works until 7 or 8 at night and then comes home and wants to have dinner with their husband or their wife, and they want to do intermittent fasting. But it really doesn't fit into their life because they value and their priority is to connect with their person after work. So we have to think about, well, how can we elevate that meal in the evening, and how can we move around their eating patterns or ensure blood sugar balance and satiety throughout the day leading up to that meal? Or how can we make a compromise around making that meal more digestible. And maybe like one day a week when they're having that meal together, it's a soup that's sort of pre-digested, or something that's stewed down and cooked proteins and veggies that are easier to digest than a big raw salad. Like there's lots of ways that we can use science and science-based tools in our life to create benefit. So, it is unfortunate that people take specific health tools to the nth degree. And, I think unfortunately social media is a lot of fun, but it's really polarizing.
Yeah.
And there's not much that isn't a trigger for people. I can talk about sugar being detrimental to children's health, their cognitive brain development and learning. And then I can get comments on Instagram that I am creating rules and, good and bad foods for kids and at a toddler age. And the reality is high fructose corn syrup on young growing bodies, from their livers to their brains, is bad in excess. And so we have to be able to have these conversations, because I care more about the health of people and children. And so unfortunately things are triggering for people, and they can, get so polarized on the internet. Like it breaks my heart, because the point is never to create a good and bad food for children. Sebastian at 3 years old has, we made cookies this weekend, and it isn't all the time, and he isn't having cookies all week long, but he asked me if we could make cookies. And I said, yes. I'm not going to say no, because that's a wonderful experience that we're having together. But those cookies are living in the freezer right now. And so when he forgets about them, I'm not going to be like, hey, do you want a cookie that we made yesterday?
Right.
I'm not going to go out of my way to bring it up. But if he remembers and brings it up, I'm not going to say he can't have one. So it's hard. It's definitely like parenting and creating an environment where your children are eating healthy, or your whole family is eating healthy, is hard. It's hard work. It's a lot of effort. But as parents, we are role models, and exposure and modeling is the biggest predictor of children who eat healthy. So I always ask myself, if Sebastian's eating more like crackers from a box or faster, like grab and snack foods, how am I feeding myself right now? And how can I prepare some meals for our family and model that eating behavior?
Yeah, that's a question I get a lot, is parents asking, my children don't like vegetables. How do I get them to eat vegetables? And maybe because you have amazing recipes in your book, you have some ideas, but I always tell them, if it takes you putting a good quality grass-fed aged cheese or something, a really good quality cheese on top of the broccoli, or doing whatever you can, putting a little bit of like honey on the carrots, whatever you can do to get that nutrition in them, as opposed to just throwing your hands up in the air and saying, well, they won't eat the vegetables, so I might as well not fight it. But finding ways that they can eat the vegetables that's more palatable in them, because it's better for them to get it, even if there's, cheese on top, as opposed to not getting the broccoli at all. What are your thoughts on helping kids get in the good stuff?
Well, I definitely agree with you. It's about variation. So like a child, and it's also about introduction. So we forget there's a flavor window for kids between the ages of 4 months and 18 months, where acceptance of food happens at the easiest rate, right? It's somewhere between 3 and 12 introductions of a food before a child accepts a food. Now, most caregivers give up at 5. So think about introducing broccoli 5 times and then deciding, oh, my child does not like broccoli. Well, here's the crazy part. After 18 months, that introduction, the times it takes for acceptance can double or triple, meaning it could take 20 introductions of broccoli if you start when they're 2 years old versus when they're 6 months old, right? So flavor acceptance is important, and not giving up is important. So you give carrots with veggies, carrot veggie sticks with primal ranch dressing, or you give it with a little hummus. Okay, they don't like that. Then you shred some carrots on, you make a carrot soup. You make a carrot puree, you put a little honey glaze on your carrots, and you roast them. You get them involved. You bring them to the grocery store. You have them pick the carrots. They want the orange carrots or the purple carrots. Every single one of these points is an exposure point for them, which is exposure points. The more you expose, the faster acceptance happens. And I know people think like, ooh, 12 times to introduce carrots before my kid accepts it. look, you're serving up carrots to your family 12 times. That means you're getting the benefits of carrots 12 times in a row. And you're showing your child how you're eating carrots and how you're enjoying carrots and what they're all about. And you can educate in the process. I think we forget that food can be education. People care about math, and they care about science, and they care about reading. They care about colors. All of these things can be introduced to your kids through food. And so one of the things that I do in my house is use a kitchen helper stool with my 3-year-old. And now Tashin finally, like in the last week, actually climbs up in it, which is a little bit scary because you're like, you just learned to walk and now you're climbing up into a kitchen stool and just standing there like, please don't fall. But with a parent present, it's really great because Sebastian even has like those plastic little knives from Amazon, and he'll like cut cauliflower for me, and I'll have him do the drizzle and do the seasonings on our roasted veggies. And he asked me to bake those cookies because he's up in that kitchen tower daily. And that's a way for him to see what I'm making, what we're eating, to talk about the colors, to talk about the consistency. Like, is it crunchy? Is it cold? Is it,
I love that.
It's like, there's so much education that can happen in a kitchen. It doesn't have to be like flashcards and Kumon for it to work. Like, how can you teach actual life skills while teaching them about the world?
I love that. That's huge. And I also try to share with people, you can hide vegetables, if you're making meatballs or hamburger patties, that you can ground up, like you said, the shredded carrots and stuff, or if you got spaghetti sauce or pizza sauce, you can put some vegetables in there as well. In your book, you have this thing is just highlighted to hell and back, but you have one thing that I really wanted to say that I would love for you to highlight on is, if you really want to be free from diets forever, you need to understand blood sugar and some basic nutritional biology. And then you talk about, and I think this is so important for people, cravings will go away, and instead you will discover a sense of incredible calm. You don't feel hungry. You aren't reaching for foods to soothe discomfort or emotional upset. And even if you indulge in some foods that spike your blood sugar for a day or two, you won't need to panic. You will autocorrect and reset your system back in softly swinging pendulum of balanced blood sugar. The result, radiance, confidence, balance. And you talk about how sometimes you're not necessarily hungry, you're hormone imbalanced. And I know that goes back to the blood sugar and insulin. And you talk about kind of not necessarily flattening the curve, makes me think of something else, but controlling that blood sugar curve. And maybe you can help people, because you work with clients one-on-one, helping them understand, especially when you come from maybe the standard American diet to a diet that does involve intermittent fasting, that does involve more, fiber and cruciferous vegetables and more fat than probably what the standard American diet has, and probably more protein than the standard American diet has. How at first they may not feel better, but to be patient because of, all of that does take time. For that wonderful, what I just said is a wonderful feeling to know that you're not, emotionally attached to food, that you're not truly hungry. You learn that hunger signal, but how to get through that rough patch in the beginning.
Definitely. Well, first, if you're used to relying on glucose or blood sugar for energy, that means you're relying on every single bite of food that you take. So when you think about what is blood sugar, you got to think about all of the carbohydrates that break down to blood sugar. So if it's a carbohydrate, it breaks down to blood sugar. That's cookies and cakes. That's crackers and pasta. That's bread. It's also sweet potatoes and white potatoes and corn and peas. It's also fruit like bananas and apples and pears, right? But when we move into the whole foods like fruits and vegetables, all that sugar and starch is wrapped up in fiber, which means we have to chew through it, then we have to digest through it, then it raises our blood sugar. Versus if you were to have like a sports drink, like a Gatorade or an orange juice, like this is liquid sugar. That's the fastest at being digested. So let's think about orange juice. People think orange juice is a great, healthy drink. Orange juice has more sugar than a Coca-Cola. And when you take a glass of orange juice and you drink it, it is immediately digested into blood sugar. So it goes in your mouth, goes in your stomach, it's absorbed in your small intestines into your bloodstream. So you can picture all these little orange juice cups, right? Floating around in your bloodstream. And as more and more of the orange juice is absorbed into your bloodstream, your blood sugar goes up because it has turned into glucose. So your blood sugar is skyrocketing high, and your pancreas is like, whoa, send out the insulin. We got to bring this down. This is not healthy, right? It's not good for us to spike very high, very fast. And so liquid sugars are the fastest at doing that. That is things like maple syrup, honey, anything that's a refined sugar, anything that's a liquid sugar, right? Those are going to just skyrocket that blood sugar. And insulin is released to pick up that sugar and start to put it away. And it puts it away in your liver, and it puts it away in your muscles. And so that's your blood sugar going up. And then as insulin's released, your blood sugar is coming back down because insulin's supporting blood sugar to be absorbed into your liver and your muscles. I call those the gas tanks of your body, right? So you have the liver is your gas tank of your organs in your brain. It stores sugar for those organs and for energy. And then your muscles store sugar for movement. So if you pull sugar into your muscles, then all of a sudden we can walk around, we can lift weights, we can go up and down stairs, we can do whatever it is we need to do in the day, right?
Love that.
So blood sugar goes up on average for 90 minutes. It crashes down on average for 90 minutes. And so what happens in the crash? Well, about the 90-minute mark or the 2-hour mark after something that's really processed or sugary, let's say you just were like, oh, I'm busy today. I'm just going to have a glass of orange juice. I'm just going to have a banana. I'm just going to have this muffin from Starbucks. Like all of those things are driving up blood sugar, and there's no protein or fat or barely any fiber that's going to hold that back from being a slow digestion, or what you would call, you said flatten the curve, elongate the curve, right? We're looking to elongate it. People are using continuous glucose monitors right now, like diabetics. I'm currently wearing one from Levels, and people are trying to flatten their curve, like literally see no uptick or decrease in blood sugar by pairing foods, like using the Fab4 to do that. And my Fab4 smoothie comes up as score as a 9 or a 10, really a flat, elongated curve. But the reality is it's like not realistic to have every meal do that, be totally flat, right? And you want some metabolic, you want a few like glucose excursions, and to make sure that you're sensitive and that your muscles have energy and things like that. But that spike and crash, it's the crash that induces cravings. It's the crash. It's all that blood sugar and all that insulin that prevents lipolysis, is the breakdown of fat. So we stop fat burning. And when we stop fat burning, we stop ourselves from being metabolically flexible too. And metabolic flexibility means that not only do we know how to burn sugar or glucose for energy, but now we also know how to burn ketones or fat for energy. And so metabolic flexibility is important because let's say you run out of glucose, you run out of blood, or you don't have as much blood sugar and your blood sugar starts to drop. If you're metabolically flexible, you can start to dip into your fat cells, and you're burning what is stored fat for, we would say a famine, but really just because you have energy there to store. Now, if you're storing energy, you're storing fat, but you're constantly giving your body glucose and you're on this blood sugar roller coaster, like I said, you're reliant on food to feel good, to feel energized. You're not burning fat, and you're full of cravings because every time you dip down, your body craves more sugar to come back up. And the interesting thing is, it's not when we're back down at, let's say 75 to 85 milligrams per deciliter at that normal lower, fasting blood sugar state. We're craving that when we go from 130 to 115. And then all of a sudden we're going, that yogurt was really good for breakfast. That blueberry yogurt or that regular, vanilla yogurt was really great for breakfast. And now it's only 2 hours later, and I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to grab an apple. But then you're at that 115, that apple takes you up to 150, and then you're dropping down to 130 and it's lunchtime. And so you have like a chicken rice bowl. And then all of a sudden you're in the 200s and you're in these pre-diabetic and diabetic numbers. Over time, your fasting blood sugar goes up. And as your fasting blood sugar goes up over time, what we see is an increase in insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, Alzheimer's, dementia. Like, intermittent fasting is supporting your body because it's giving your body a break from glucose to bring your blood sugar down, to keep your fasting numbers in a good space, to give you that time to do lymphatic cleansing and remove excess blood sugar and make you more prone to being metabolically flexible. Like that's the benefit. That's the sweet sauce there. So when it comes to blood sugar, understanding how to balance your blood sugar and not be in a crash state is important. So if you decide full circle, if you decide intermittent fasting feels like a yo-yo diet for you, fine. How can you eat in a 12-hour window from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in a balanced way that doesn't jack your blood sugar up over time? By the end of the day, you're in pre-diabetic state. You're going to bed with a full stomach, full of blood sugar, not getting the beneficial cleansing, waking up feeling like not only can you not focus and put thoughts together, but you have brain fog and you have joint pain and you're bloated and you're constipated and you're craving more sugar.
That's quite the cycle. And as I was listening to you, I was thinking to myself, I think a lot of people think, well, if I stop eating at, 10 o'clock and then, I get up at 8, when I was sleeping, I was fasting. I was giving my digestive system a break. But I think what people need to understand is, like you said, even if it's a partially pre-digested food or very easy to digest food, that can still take 6 hours. But if it's a more complex food, it's 12 hours for it to get through your system. So you're really never giving your digestive system that break. Just like when you sleep, you give your muscles a break, you give your eyes a break, you give all that a break because it needs it. But if we're constantly feeding ourselves every 2 hours because we feel that need, because we're hungry,
Yeah, hormonally hungry,
yes,
cravings.
And your body only has, or your blood only has like half a teaspoon of sugar in it. And so it does, when you have something like you said, the orange juice, it puts it in a state of panic. It's like, that's way more sugar than I need. And so it just produces so much of that insulin, which I would love for you to talk about, takes you to that step of being insulin resistant, to where now your body is trying to do what it can, but the insulin signal isn't being heard. And what we do about insulin resistance with, especially with the Fab4, I'm sure that helps.
Right. Well, insulin is a critical hormone. I mean, its job is to bring our blood sugar down, which protects our brain and our organ function. And it ensures that our cells and our mitochondria have energy. They have that substrate. They have that glucose to create ATP if you're burning sugar for fuel, right? But we have 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year access to so much sugar and processed foods that whenever you talk about eating more balanced, whole meals less often, people immediately bucket it as a diet, right? Yeah. But what we need to think about is that what our bodies are genetically capable of handling and hormonally capable of handling is one thing. And so when you think about having access to all this sugar and eating sugar or processed foods all day long, every time you have that, your pancreas is dumping insulin into your bloodstream. And insulin, what you want it to be, what you want your cells to be, is super insulin sensitive. You want them to say, "Ooh, is that insulin? Insulin, pair with sugar. Come on in this cell. Here, doors open." But when you have insulin and hyperinsulinemia, excess insulin in your bloodstream all the time, like other hormones, too much of them can downregulate their effectiveness. And so we're constantly in contact with insulin. Your cells may become insulin resistant, and they may just not be like, yeah, we know you're still here. Like we're not as sensitive, or we're not as prone to sucking glucose into those cells. And you also want to think about, okay, well, how do I make sure that those doors, like if insulin comes knocking, are like swinging open? How do we do that? Well, we don't have 24 access to sugar and insulin in our bloodstream all the time, which means you want to have breaks, whether that's intermittent fasting or becoming metabolically flexible and burning fat for fuel, or even just having a 12-hour window, like a 12-hour feeding window. If someone's like, no, I don't want to talk about intermittent fasting, or it doesn't work for them based on a past history or whatever, 12 hours is not a diet. 12 hours is, hey, you should be fasting for at least 12 hours every single day. And that is kind of where my boundaries are, because we do want that insulin sensitivity to stay strong. Other ways to increase insulin sensitivity: really great sleep, right? Really great sleep is always going to support it. Moving your body, right? If you're pulling glucose into your muscle cells and you're storing glucose there, let's burn that glucose up with a workout, empty our tanks, make room for more sugar so that our cells will want that sugar. They're not full already, right? And they're of unused energy. And so then you want to think about endocrine disrupting chemicals. Like they're everywhere. It's very unfortunate, but this is like Teflon in your pans, heating food in plastic or styrofoam, using plastic water bottles, the PUFAs And all of these forever chemicals that are present in our cleaning supplies, to our home care, to our beauty supplies, they're kind of everywhere. And so before you get overwhelmed with this piece, I would say the most important thing is to attack one area of your home at a time. So a challenge that I have for some of my clients is like, they just don't drink out of plastic water bottles. So what does that mean? They have to have a big stainless steel Yeti or a stainless steel, hydro flask, or whatever the case may be, a big water bottle or a big mug. They fill it up with water, they take it with them, and they say, okay, I'm just going to try and commit to this for the next month. You realize how much plastic you would have been drinking out of at events. Here's a free plastic water bottle. Here's a plastic water bottle. We don't know if that plastic has been sitting in a hot room or a warehouse. And those, microplastics are not only seen in our bloodstream, they're seen in placenta blood, which is crazy. So that's like what's going to your child in utero. And so for me, pick an area of your home, of your life that you want to clean up. Don't be overwhelmed by, oh, it's in everything. So how can we change out our water? How can we change out our home cleaning supplies? Shout out to Branch Basics. They have a concentrate. You can turn it into a streak-free and all-purpose, a bathroom. They send you glass bottles. It's all the same concentrate. It's just different amounts for every single area of your home, and it simplifies all of it. So they're doing the hard work for you. You clean up your house supply, your cleaning supplies in no time flat. But that's the kind of stuff that we need to think about, is like, how are we keeping insulin sensitivity high, and how are we keeping hormone sensitivity in general high, right? Because it could be estrogen, it could be insulin, it could be cortisol. We want to produce a hormone. We want our body to react to that hormone, and then we want to get rid of that hormone. And so that is really, really key. And balancing your blood sugar is the easiest lever to pull when it comes to how much insulin your body's creating, because if we can lower the flood of insulin by choosing to eat a specific way, then our body is much more likely to stay sensitive, because it's getting rid of the insulin, clearing it out, and then allowing for us to eat again, produce more insulin, clearing it out, versus sitting with hyperinsulinemia or excess insulin in our bloodstream all the time.
I love that. So with your fat forward, the protein, fat, fiber, and then greens, I don't hear in the book, I don't recall a whole lot of talk about eating things, a lot of grains and dairy products. With your expertise with the clients that you've worked with, how do you fall on the spectrum of grains and, especially gluten and dairy?
Yeah, unfortunately, gluten and gliadin both have been linked to, over 20,000 PubMed research articles when it comes to autoimmunity and allergies and inflammation. So I don't think that they should be a main player on any plate. But it doesn't mean that we don't, I don't want to even say indulge. It doesn't mean that we don't eat grains. Like my family I will make white rice for the boys if I'm making a chicken veggie bowl, or if my husband, Chris, loves rice. We will get a fermented sourdough from the Ecology Center here, which is a nice little farm here by my house. And they get shipments of bread a couple times a week. There are times when we're incorporating cereal grains or grains in our life, but it isn't the main part of the plate, and it isn't the main part of our meal. And I understand the impact on blood sugar, and I understand the impact on autoimmunity and inflammation. So what I think has been sold to us and marketed to us is like, grains are full of nutrients, and they are full of fiber, and you should have, 10 to 12 servings of grains a day. Whatever the case may be, it's really just marketing. And we haven't evolved to process them in the way that is super beneficial. But I think the hard part is I don't like to demonize foods, but I don't know that you're getting the nutrient density that you would get. I know that you're not getting the nutrient density you would get from, let's say, a non-starchy vegetable, a healthy fat like avocado or ghee or coconut oil or olive oil, or what you would get from animal protein, which is the most nutrient dense ounce for ounce, whether that's like a grass-fed beef or wild salmon or oysters or shrimp, animal protein ounce for ounce is the number one way to prevent iron deficiency, zinc deficiency, selenium deficiency, to get choline for brain health, to get B vitamins for cellular health. It is far and away the most nutrient dense food you can eat. And so when it comes to pregnancy and kids specifically, I am, I'm pro animal-based foods for nutrient density, blood sugar balance, and really preventing deficiencies. When someone's an adult, I have clients that are raw vegans and vegetarian and plant 100% or 90% plant-based. I work with them based on their ideal diet to ensure they aren't nutrient deficient, but that takes a lot of prior proper planning. It takes a lot of supplementation, and blood sugar balance even can be impacted because they don't have the bioavailable protein from plant-based foods. Yes, there are proteins in plant-based foods. The bioavailability of those proteins and the completeness of those proteins are lower, and thus it is harder for us to reach satiety, to maintain a 6-hour window between meals without feeling like they need to snack. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to how we eat. But when it comes to like grains and dairy, I think of it more as like a fun addition, like drunken goat cheese from Whole Foods, which is this raw white goat cheese that's amazing. That on top of broccoli, phenomenal. That just as a piece, delicious. And when I'm pregnant or when I have little, kids to feed, that may be a really nutrient dense bite for them, where they're getting calcium and protein and, depending on the type of conjugated linoleic acid, like some really amazing things that they might not be getting if they're not willing to eat animal protein, or if they're picky, or if you have food aversions, or if you're nauseous when you're pregnant. Like, there are times when that dairy can be a really nutrient dense option for people. But on the flip side, for some people, it may be feeding, inflammatory bacteria in their microbiome. It may be causing flush, their skin to be flush, may be causing congestion, the overproduction of mucus that inhibits their ability to have a really restful night's sleep. Like, you have to ask yourself, it may make people constipated. It may end up with cystic acne. Like, it really depends on you. And so everyone needs to, like the same way that we look at tools, whether it's intermittent fasting or HIIT training versus yoga, or staying up late or going to bed early. Like, everyone needs to look at what works for them in their lifestyle based on who they are and how they like to live and what their priorities are. And so I consider myself a consultant with clients because I sit down with them and I say, tell me about your life. Put me in your shoes. Day in the life of you. What does it look like? How can I elevate a few things, or how can I teach you a thing or two about what might support you to live your life just a little bit more, that in a little more balanced way, or make these healthy swaps or small changes for big benefits.
And I love that you said that, because that was going to be my next question. I'm almost done with you. You're probably like, I can sit here and talk to you for hours. When it comes to helping people make changes that come to you that have, been off the rails their whole life or for a really long time. And I love how you said you sit down and it's that one-on-one consultation to understand them. But generally speaking, so that you can speak to my audience, if they come to you or they come to me and they want to make one change, because I firmly believe that small changes made over time are obviously, way more impactful than trying to change everything at once. That becomes too overwhelming. What, first and or second small change can somebody make to really kind of tip the needle in their favor so that they feel successful pretty quickly and continue on the path?
Definitely. I am on board with you when it comes to one change at a time. I think about the healthy foundation of a house is brick by brick. Put a brick down, make sure it's in that mortar, it is glued there, and then add the next one. Like, we need the foundation, because you don't want to yo-yo. You don't want to do something and then not do it. That's like building. That's like the Three Little Pigs. You built your house out of straw, or you built your house out of sticks. Like, how do we build a lasting house? And we do that brick by brick. And so the first change, habit, or brick that I would have my clients make is breakfast. How are we breaking the fast? If you're someone who doesn't feel hungry until noon, great. I want you to break the fast with the Fab Four smoothie at 11. And that's what I want you to do. And I want you to get good at it for the next 12 to 14 days. And when you feel like, wow, I'm actually like craving this and I'm loving this and I'm tried this other flavor and I can't believe this is chocolate almond butter smoothie is my breakfast. Like, whatever the case may be, get good at it. and see how it affects the rest of your day. And then I actually would look at the end of the day and say, no late night eating. Like, we got to find a way to get through that. And so if you're eating at 10 o'clock at night, most nights, and watching TV, how do we get to 9? And we just back it up an hour until we're at somewhere between 6 and 8 p.m. at night, depending on your lifestyle. And then we get good at that. And then from there, we add on a movement brick. So whether that's, hey, I've never done a workout in my life, great. Let's start with 20 minutes walking every day. And then from there, you might decide, oh, I'm feeling like, oh, I'm really craving energy. It's important to know that when we don't have elevated blood sugar and we don't have elevated insulin, we actually have more spontaneous movement, meaning our bodies want to move when we're not full of sugar. Even though sugar is an energy substrate, we want to move because we don't have these ebbs and flows in energy. We have more sustained energy. So once people are a little more balanced with those two first bricks, then we'll bring in movement. And if someone says like, hey, I want to start doing yoga, I want to start doing a spin class or lifting, phenomenal. Let's not go all out and say that you're doing double days, for the next 2 weeks. It's look at your calendar, pick 1 to 3 days where you're going to get a workout in, move your body 20 to 30 minutes, add those strength training exercises, add that those yoga moves, and make it a lifestyle. Because if you're doing something and you're reaching for these goals where you haven't learned to be tummy timing, then crawling, then walking, then running, then sprinting, you can't just go from tummy time to sprints, because it's not going to work. It's not going to last. And the goal, I always ask my clients at the beginning of the year, where do you want to be in a year? Not where do you want to be in a month? Where do you want to be in a year? Because it's those activities every day that if someone says, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds, I say, great. If you were down 10 pounds in a year and you kept it off the rest of your life, how would you feel? Great. If you were down 10 pounds in 3 weeks and you gained it back in 3 weeks, how would you feel? Like, we have to play the long game, and we have to build these habits for lifestyle changes.
Totally. And you've given us a great kind of snapshot into your life and how you eat. I have one quick question for you, and everybody is different. I'd always have to preface this because what works for Kelly may not work for you. But it's a question I do get a lot is, how many times a day do you eat? Do you find yourself with your smoothie? And I know you work to be 4 to 6 hours, sustained by what you eat. Are you eating 2, 3, 4 times a day? What does your typical day look like for eating?
I eat between 2 and 4 times a day, and it totally depends on the day. I probably have fewer meals on the days where I have fewer appointments. And that sounds counterintuitive, but like on a weekend when I wake up slow and I have a coffee and then I have my lunch or my breakfast a little bit later, I break my fast maybe at 11 versus at 7. Like today, it was at 9:30, right? I'm going to want lunch probably at the 4-hour mark. Maybe the 6-hour mark, but I back it into dinner, because dinner is always at 5:30, like between 5 and 6, but like on average it's at 5:30. So if I back that up, I'll probably have something at 1:30 or even at 12:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30 is only the 3-hour mark. 1:30 is that 4-hour mark. Like, I know that I have a full day packed of interviews, clients, and like a couple random phone calls with my sister who helps run my business. But like right there, it's a lot easier for me in a flexible day where I maybe break the fast at 11:30 to then go from 11:30 to 5:30 on a weekend because we went to the beach or we were running around to a park and I'm out and about, versus being in my office, using my brain, having to be interviewed for things like this. Like, I need more fuel on those days because I've worked out and I'm using my brain. It's like a 2-pronged approach. So the most I would have is 4 meals a day. And that most often is when I'm pregnant, when I'm breastfeeding, or in a highly stressful time. Like, I'm on a book tour, I am being interviewed for morning TV, something like that, that would require just a little more nutrition. And a lot of times that looks like a Fab 4 smoothie, a lunch, like salad, leftovers, the Fab 4 on the plate. And then what I call a bridge snack, which may be like a couple hard-boiled eggs. It may be a Chomps beef stick. It may be some Marcona almonds and some olives. It may be, again, leftovers. It may be, occasionally it will be a piece of fruit, like apple with almond butter or some berries and again, a handful of nuts. That's kind of how it goes. Most often, if I can just have dinner earlier or I can just have lunch earlier, I will opt for and encourage my clients to opt for having a meal instead of a snack, because a meal that stretches your stomach and fully satisfies you allows for you not to snack. Snack is just like kicking the can. It's like, I'm hungry right now and I'm going to have a little bite that's not going to totally satisfy me and maybe will make me more hungry for my meal, you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'd rather people eat earlier. Like sometimes that means I'm like, dinner's ready. It's 4:45. Who wants dinner? My husband's like, you're literally 80 years old. It is the blue light special over here. But you know, I'd rather just eat the dinner than say like, well, dinner's at 5:30, so I'm going to have a snack.
There you go. And your husband, like my husband, he's so incredibly active and he trusts me. But sometimes he'll look at me when I want to have dinner at 5 o'clock, because I keep trying to push it. We used to be 7 o'clockers and now we're trying to push it back. He kind of looks at me. Does your husband, has he adapted well to the earlier dinners, or does he still have pushback?
No, there's so much pushback. And it really comes down to the fact that he doesn't want to eat with our kids, which is really hard because it feels stressful for him that like, you know, Tashin's throwing food from a high chair and bashes down in 5 minutes and he's taken only 2 bites. And so what is also, we talked about exposure to vegetables for kids. So our compromise is that every single time we have dinner, Chris doesn't not plate something. He plates, he sits down with us and he plates veggies and the salad, like whatever roasted veggies I have or whatever salad I have, or if it's like zoodles, like he'll sit down and have that. He might not have his meat and potatoes until they're in bed, but I'm not eating my meat and potatoes at, you know, or whatever the main parts of the meal are at 8 o'clock at night with him. Like his average meal time, he'd like to be European. He'd like to eat between 8 and 9 p.m. So we've struck a compromise and it's working out for our family. And occasionally Sebastian at 3 will be like, Dad, why aren't you having the chicken? And he'll say, you know, I had lunch at 1 or 2 o'clock, bud, and I'm not totally hungry for the protein yet because the protein is the most satisfying and it makes me the most full. So I'm just going to have some of these veggies to like, you know, make my body strong, or like, you know, I'm having the carrots because it's great for my eyes. Like he is my teammate when it comes to exposure and modeling for kids. And the research actually points to the fact that the dad has more influence in traditional family arrangements where there's a mom and a dad and kids. The dad has more leeway and exposure influence with children than the mom. So if the dad is eating veggies, more likely that the child is eating veggies. So I even use that science against Chris. I'm like, babe, got to sit down, got to eat the veggies, got to model it.
Right.
So,
It's in your hands.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, I love that. And real quick, are you wearing an Aura ring?
I have an Aura ring on.
Yeah.
I have my
The
levels
levels?
on. Yeah.
Are there any other tools that you use to help you just kind of get information from your body?
So I have a Whoop right now, which I haven't
Okay.
started using. I'm giving that I'm trying that out because I know some people would rather use a Whoop than an Aura ring. So I just have to know about all of these technology, health tech tools for my clients so that I have options for them. You know, there are other things that I use, like Chronometer is if someone is used to using a food journal app that tracks like macros. I like Chronometer the best because it gives people, it shows them micronutrients and things like omega and essential fatty acids, like how much omega-3s and B12, and they can look at a day and be like, wow, I don't eat anything that has vitamin D in it, or I don't get any long chain fatty acids. So Chronometer is a great one. Again, I'm using the levels, continuous glucose monitor, Aura ring. I have the Whoop. I use some blue blocking glasses later in the day. I love, you know, an infrared sauna and home. I love that all the home workout equipment is getting smaller. I think my parents had like, you know, the big weights, and it was a small bedroom and it was like full of like weight machines, and now you can just get like a tonal that sits on the wall and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options for people. But I will say, if we learned anything from the pandemic, cultivating an at-home workout routine is critical for your health and making sure that you can survive through things like a pandemic, having children, lack of sleep, working from home. Like so important.
Yeah, or make it convenient.
Right.
Do you do ice baths or anything like that?
I haven't done any like polar bear plunge ice bath situations yet.
Me neither.
I'm like, I'll throw my shower on cold and try to do that for a few minutes. But I'd much rather sit in a sauna for like an hour than just sit in anything cold personally. But we do have the beach here. And, I'm always going in. I'm not the person who sits on the sand. So, I feel like I get right now, I think it's like 58.
Wow. Yeah.
So
for sure.
We can get cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and also as a product of like living, I'm in a rental right now. We're moving into our home, hopefully this summer. So nothing's ever been permanent for us. Especially, being in Los Angeles, there's, it's crazy real estate prices out here. So
crazy.
We're happy to finally have a home, and I'm excited to make it my own. And so, I was thinking about how I can incorporate ice baths, but just haven't done it here. Our current bath is full of kids' bath toys. So
the rubber duckies.
I'd have a lot of work to do to even get ice in there. But no excuses.
I love that.
So
well, I want to thank you so much for your time. And would you share with my following where they can find you? I mean, I think you've done a great job of where to find you using your name and stuff, but just go ahead and share your Instagram, your website, and if you have any projects that are coming up, anything that would interest.
So my website is kellyleveque.com, and my books are Body Love, A Body Love Every Day, and the Body Love Journal, which helps support you to understand if you're eating the Fab Four and what days, you can jot down like, I was hungrier today, and like, what did you do? And your emotions and things like that. I'm really proud of that. It's a fun project that I did. I have courses online. The Fab Four Fundamentals teaches you, if you're not interested in reading the books, in an easy to understand video format with downloadable PDFs. Fab Four Fundamentals is for anyone at any age looking to balance their blood sugar. Then I have the Fab Four Pregnancy, which teaches you to balance your blood sugar when you're pregnant. Fab Four Under 4, which teaches moms and dads to balance their children's plate, to balance their blood sugar and hopefully balance their moods, which is, we don't really realize, but dips in blood sugar really affect our children. And if you are looking at your child's behavior through that lens, you'll start to really notice it. And then I have protein powder. So I have a grass-fed beef isolate. And then I'm starting in April, I'll have my chocho bean protein, which is a complete plant-based, lectin-free, no hexane extraction protein powder from the Andes. And it'll be the same formula as mine. So an organic vanilla or organic cacao and a little bit organic monk fruit. So no impact on blood sugar. And I think that's it. I have a podcast, the Be Well by Kelly podcast. So there's a lot of ways to find me. I'm on Instagram and everywhere social at Be Well by Kelly.
Absolutely. And I love your Instagram account. I think that's a really good place for people to go follow right now.
No,
that's the first step. Thank you so much again. Like I told you, I followed you for a very long time. 100% agree with your book, whether that matters or not, but I just think the way that you teach people, and even the name of your book, Body Love, because I think the most important thing that we can understand is that when we make these kind of decisions with our diets, we're loving ourselves and not depriving ourselves. And I think you do such a tremendous job throughout the book of reminding people that they're doing themselves service and not a disservice by changing the way that they eat and the way that they think about food. So I really appreciate that.
Yes, my pleasure. Well, thank you for having me.
And you're welcome.
Definitely be in touch.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this. And I know you're going to love her. Please leave notes below on what you thought about this, and we hope to talk to you soon. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.